So talk to me a little bit about what you're working on as a reader. What are some of the things that you're working?
Well, I'm working on looking into the book, into the text to find some bigger images, see what reoccurring images that could help me find the overall idea of the book. Also, digging deeper into the book. And I'm also looking at secondary characters and ones that could help besides the main character to get a feel of the whole book and understand what it's about.
Nice, nice. Can I stop you for a second?
Yeah.
So one thing, can you spend a little bit of time, you say finding the big images, or like the recurring images of the text that you're reading right now. Have you been working on that in Mississippi Trial? Is that what some of the work you've been doing?
I did.
Let's see how that's been going.
Okay.
Like talk it through a little bit. How did it go?
Okay, well, one reoccurring image I found was about this river that the main character goes to.
Yeah.
And he uses it as an escape, sort of when there are hard things going on in his life. And he also uses it to meet this girl that he likes to talk to, and he always meets her there.
Right, right.
And he eventually, one thing that happens is a dead body is found in this river of someone he knows, and it's a very big mystery, and so he stops, well, that was actually a different river, so he starts fishing in this river, so he starts using it more and more, and so it kept popping up in the story, so I was looking into how it could be important to the plot and what was going on.
Nice, nice. Well, Jonah, one of the things that I want to say that I just think is absolutely so awesome is that you're doing this really sophisticated work of recognizing when images exist in a text and how they keep occurring over and over in that text, right? But one of the things, like there's an idea that I have that I might want to, that you might want to think about a little bit, right? It's a little tip that you can kind of consider. And it goes like this. You know how like when you're reading Mississippi Trial, you keep seeing like over and over again, like this river kind of pop up and it has like a deeper symbolic meaning? Mm-hmm. The same thing can happen when you look across lots of books, right? So when you're looking across lots of books, you can ask yourself, like, what are the images or the themes that keep creeping up in many of the things that I've read? I'm going to teach you this like fancy word, and it's called intertextuality, right? It means that like we're putting a lot of text together, and we're saying across those texts, what are some things that are common that live across many of them? You see what I mean? Yeah. Okay. Do you want to give it a try? Let's try it. Let's see how it might go. So you have Mississippi Trial, which is the book that you're reading right now. Yeah. You have To Kill a Mockingbird, which you just finished. Yeah. And then I brought with me, just so we could work off of a little bit, the read aloud text, which is The Boy in the Striped Pajamas. And what I'm wondering is that maybe we could sort of like work on this a little bit together about not just thinking about recurring images and that smart work you've already been doing in this book, but what are some recurring images that might exist throughout books that you've been reading? Or maybe it's like recurring patterns that you're noticing. What are you thinking?
Well, there is one big one that I noticed throughout all of them, which is about, the main characters are all children, and they're all growing up and realizing things about the world that they were closed off to. And mainly they're about hate. In these two, I think it's about racism. And in this one, it's about, the Holocaust and anti-Semitism, I guess, and they're all kids who were blinded by that before. Not that they shouldn't have known about it, and they're growing up to notice it and see what happens. And in some of them, there's death that makes them notice it, death of people they know, and so they're always growing up and learning about these things. And it's also they're bring them into their own lives, and it's affecting them. And all the stories are pretty much how they grow up and see what's going on around them, and it affects their lives.
Nice. Can I stop you for a second?
Yeah.
So one of the things that you did, which is just so powerful, is the fact that you're saying this work of like, it happened here, and it happened here, and it happened here, and I'm imagining you're beginning to sort of build theories about it happening outside of stories, right? Like, one of the things that happens is that things are recurring. It doesn't just exist in one text, it exists in many. And what you just did there is you began to put your finger on, like, what is it about hate that sort of exists inside of all of these stories? Right? You think you might just linger in that territory for a little bit. Just be thinking to yourself, like, how is hate represented across these three books? What are you thinking?
I think it's represented through popular themes, like I said before, racism and anti-Semitism, but it's popping up mainly in just these people meeting other people who eventually become involved. Some people die and they start having relationships with people.
Can I stop you?
Yeah.
Put your finger on like an exact moment in one of these stories that is like kind of exemplifying what you're talking about.
Well, in this book, the main character, Hera, meets a boy named Emmett.
Yeah.
And he sees how people are hateful to him and all the other African-American people, and he starts realizing that that's been going on for a while, and eventually Emmett is killed, and that's when it really hits him that there are people who that can really do bad things, and there's a lot of hatred. And in The Boy in the Striped Pajamas, he meets a boy who, the main character, Bruno, he meets a Jewish boy in a concentration camp, and he sees how, the other Jews are treated, and he builds a relationship with him also, and so he starts to see where hate can be with people he knows.
Nice. And what about To Kill a Mockingbird?
In this one, the girl is a little bit younger, but she sees how her dad is he's a lawyer, I think, and he's representing an African-American man in a case, and she doesn't know him, but she knows who he is, and that's when she starts to realize that when she goes to the case that people can lie, and she knows he's innocent, but they say that he's guilty, and she realizes how all that racism can even make an innocent man go to jail, or he even ends up being killed.
Nice, nice. So you see what you're doing here, right? Is that you're thinking about like not only just one story, but you're thinking of like lots of stories, and how you like put your finger on this one thing, which was hate, right? Put your finger on one thing that you see as sort of a common theme or a recurring image, a recurring kind of like topic that's going through the story, and kind of like finding ways to show examples of how that kind of keeps creeping up. But here's the thing, and you know this, Jonah, is that you could do this work not only in historical fiction, like in your book club unit, but you can also do this work like in any book that you read, right? You could also do this work in like when you're reading a nonfiction article that you might be reading in science and social studies, and then you might be finding like, some similarities in the fiction book that you're reading, which is kind of nice to be thinking across not only like the same genre, but also different genres as well. Really nice work. Keep it up.